My name is Dr. Shanna Stephen, and my Black is transnational.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of My Black is Transnational. And we have on here good sister of mine who is blessing us with the presence. You know, have to catch her after work. She out here making moves. I have on here all the way in Miami or Fort Lauderdale?
We're in Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale, y'all on the safe side. Okay. I got my sis over here, Dr. Shanna Stephen, who will be talking to us a little bit about her experience representing the islands of St. Lucia. And so, just a pediatrician extraordinaire, travel blogger, travel shower, traveler extraordinaire, going to Dubai for the low ski, getting stuck midway somewhere. But no, nonetheless, thank you so much, sis, for jumping on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad I finally made it. Mama, I made it. I finally made it to the show. Proud of what you're doing here. Really proud of you.
We had to make sure I came correct. We had to make sure we had our seasons. We had our seasons, loaded up so we can be able to say, look, man, it's our proof of concept. Just in case you have to come talk to your peoples, your representatives, and be like, yo, this is our proof of concept. It's a legit podcast. And now we can have
y'all are seasoned. I'm loving it. Loving it.
All right. Well, so before we get into the conversation, I just want you to take a couple minutes or so to just introduce yourself to the people watching, people listening, who you are, where you represent, and anything interesting that you want to share about yourself.
Sounds good. All right. Hi, everybody. As Kel said, I'm Dr. Shanna Stephen. I'm happy to be here with you guys. Born and raised in Fort Lauderdale. Always knew growing up I wanted to help people. So I knew I was either going to go into healthcare or be a teacher. Going into healthcare, my mom always said I shouldn't do it. She said, you're too squeamish, you don't like blood. So I kept going, just kind of panned out. Wanted to be a teacher. That's still a joy of mine, but I really, really enjoy what I'm doing. So I ended up going to University of Florida. I then went to Meharry for medical school, trained in Atlanta at Morehouse, and I moved back down here to South Florida, now working as a pediatrician, seeing people that I love, doing what I love, teaching my patients to advocate for themselves.
Wow. So wait, we're going to talk a little bit about the upbringing real quick, right? Well, you got to let them know where you representing again, where your people from?
I represent St. Lucian. So I'm definitely St. Lucian. Both of my parents was born and raised in St. Lucia, came to Florida in their 20s. And then myself, my brother, and my sister were both born in South Florida. So we're technically first generation, but definitely raised in a Caribbean household.
And we're gonna unpack that in a little bit of what that was like. But before we get into that, you mentioned that your moms and said that you were too squeamish to be a teacher. It's so interesting because Wanda isn't on the show. For those who are listening, Dr. Wanda is my wife. Y'all heard in past seasons, but they supposed to. She said the same thing about like she wanted to be a teacher if she wasn't going to be a doctor. Is he going to be a teacher? And then of course, she loved doing nails and stuff, but that wasn't going to be initially her hobby. But like teaching, so like what exactly about what level of teaching were you initially thinking? Like high school, elementary, like what were you thinking?
No, I was going to be an elementary school teacher.
Okay.
For sure. Teaching the foundation, teaching the basics. I found that most of the teachers that I kept in contact with were my teachers 6th grade and below. Because I feel like they see you for the most time. They invest the most time in you. They really build that foundation for you. And I think for people in healthcare who go into it because they want to educate and things like that, it's like a natural progression that you want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the reasoning behind it.
So is that what kind of influenced your concentration or your specialty in pediatric practice or?
No, not necessarily. It's interesting because I've always seen myself as an elementary school teacher, but I just like kids. I don't like adults. I don't like adults at all. Growing up, I just always like kids. Like I try to find jobs where I was like babysitting kids or doing stuff like that. I just always like kids. And then going through medical school, I said, well, you want to be a pediatrician, but maybe there's another path for you. I said, maybe you'll like surgery. Maybe you'll like OBGYN. Maybe you'll like internal medicine. I went through and I said, no, OBGYN. The surgical side was cool. And then when the baby came out, I was kind of like over here sewing up and I'm looking at the baby. I'm like, I gotta be there. But I don't know. I like them. I enjoy them. I think kids say very interesting things. I think they're very honest people. You don't really have to beat around the bush. Adults, they come and they lie. They don't do anything they're supposed to do. But, if I have a parent come in and I tell you, your child is very sick, they need to take this medication 10 times a day. They're going to say, so what time I need to set my alarm for? Like they actually follow through when it comes to their child. Kids are resilient. They bounce back. I like the age group.
That's awesome. So like, let's talk about you when you were a kid, and let's unpack growing up in a Caribbean or household, or just growing up in an immigrant household overall. What was that like? Just what would that look like on a day-to-day basis? Take it back to when you were like in middle school or even high school. What did that look like?
Mm-hmm. Middle school, I think, was when I noticed, because growing up, you only know your house. You feel like this is normal. I think the transition into middle school is when I started to understand, my Black American friends, their household didn't run like my household, because you started to, get friends and have friends that would call your house. At this point, we didn't have cell phones. It was landlines. So my Caribbean parents, I think just in general, they were cautious is the word I use. My Black American friends, their parents were a lot more lax. Yes, you can go out. Yes, you can sleep over. There was no sleepovers. You weren't sleeping over my house. I wasn't sleeping over your house. When my friends would like call my house, my dad made it very clear. You need to tell your little friends that when they call here, it's no, hi, is Shana home? Hi, can I speak to Shana? They need to say good evening. Yes. How you doing? And I had to explain to them and they don't get it. And I'm like, I don't know why you have to say this, but you have to say this when you call my house. Or they would call like, 9:30. My parents were like, why are they calling here at this time? Like, what is wrong with and I'm like, y'all don't understand. Or, like, let's say, so my parents, we live here in America, but in their house, they're still in their mindset. They're still very much in the Caribbean. So one of the things that struck me as unusual, which I didn't know till people started coming over my house, was for a lot of Caribbean people, Americans, they'll run their AC all day. Caribbean households, that AC is off, is there for decoration. So when people come to our house, especially like, even like to this day, my husband, Chris, he used to be bigger. So before he lost weight, he would come up just be sweating bullets. Why don't your parents turn on the AC? This is what they're used to. Like in our house, cold is like, if the AC is on, it's like 78, 80. My parents are like, whoop, cold in here. We got to turn that off. Yeah. So you go over there and it's hot, it's humid. The windows are open. They frying fish. They got a bunch of fruit trees in the back. They growing mangoes and they cutting sugar cane. And I didn't know this didn't happen in other households. So yeah, there was rules, there was regulations. We were cleaning. Friday night we were cleaning. There was island music playing. Saturday morning we were waking up. We were cleaning. We were pulling weeds. There was structure. There was structure. Yeah. Christmas morning you woke up. There wasn't no opening, no gifts. No, we were gonna sit down. We were gonna pray first. Just want to open a gift. All my friends was opening gifts the night before, leaving cookies out for Santa. There was none of that. There was none of that.
Cookie for who?
Gift for who? I work hard
for Jesus. Cookies for Jesus?
Jesus. Man, there was church, there was pantyhose, there was slits. Like none of my friends had to do all of that. Yeah, there was no nails, there was no nothing. My friends was wearing acrylic. No, there was no polish. It was very, very strict. Very strict. There was some crossover. Like my mom made sure, I'm your parent, I'm not your little friend. And that crossover was definitely there with my Black American friends. But there was a lot of rules and restrictions and ways to move that my other friends didn't have to move like. At all.
So then how did
that's your normal.
How did you balance it? Like, so when you were outside, you knew like you were in this different world where like your Black American friends had these different ways of moving, navigating life and they had a different lifestyle and expectations. But how did you balance being in your household where you basically, when you were at home, you back in St. Lucia compared to then when you were outside, you were American. So how were you able to navigate the dual identity, especially being born in the States?
Right. I will say, growing up in South Florida, you have an unfair advantage. There's a bunch of us here. So it's not like, I wasn't in Idaho where everybody's like, you're the only Caribbean family. There's tons of Caribbean families. So even if you're Black American, there's a lot that you like about Caribbean culture. There's a lot that you respect about Caribbean culture. So I will say down here, it's more of a melting pot. So you're a lot more open to certain things. Like, there's, like for instance, we have a big Caribbean population. We have a huge Hispanic population. There's a place down here called La Granja. And it's like this Hispanic place. And, Black people always go there. They say La Granja. I'm going to La Granja. It's like, no, it's La Granja. But everybody goes there. It's a big melting pot. So I will say, even if people don't understand, they respect. So, they may not have understood everything, but they definitely respected, this is my culture. This is not going to happen in my house. You can't call my house at this time. It really wasn't difficult because there was a lot of us. There's a huge, Caribbean population. So I think it kind of grew on people. Even if it wasn't the way that they grew up, a lot of people down here are very accepting that there's different ways of life and different cultures. And, even all the time, they love the food and all that stuff. Like all the Black Americans down here, we love oxtails and we love, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Because you know the difference. A Caribbean person don't say oxtail, and American person gonna say oxtails. We love it the same, but we know there's a difference. So it's still an appreciation. So even though they knew, you know, because as soon as they would meet my parents and my parents spoke, oh, where's your parents from? They hear that accent, we know they're not from here. But it's an appreciation down here. So even though there's differences, you still feel very much accepted. Very, very much.
So you didn't necessarily need to have like you didn't have to since you have such a large Caribbean-based community, did you have people you can commiserate with? Because for me growing up, especially with African immigrant community, very similar to you when I was in my household, it was Nigeria, Ghana-ish. Like, you know, when I was outside, I was American-ish, right? And so, but I had other people that I could be able to like commiserate with who also kind of grew up in a similar household, had strict parents, you know, the expectations. So like, were you able to have similar people? I mean, you have your cousins if you have cousins and everything, but did you have, you know, other mates of yours that you were able to, you know, commiserate with about the struggle of growing up immigrant?
Oh yeah, because I think the struggle of growing up immigrant is very similar. It's very similar. So being that, you know, even if you weren't from St. Lucia, if you were from Haiti, if you were, you know, Puerto Rican, if you were Jamaican, if you were Bahamian, everybody kind of went through the same thing. There was rules and regulation. There were expectations. Your parents came here to give you a better life. You were going to capitalize on said life. You were going to make something of yourself. It's the same. The struggle was the same no matter what island, no matter how big, how small, there were expectations. They were the same. And it's funny now to see like all the memes and videos, you know, people make, you know, growing up Caribbean, growing up Haitian, growing up, I'm like, wow, we lived the same life. That's crazy. Yes. We lived the same, but yeah, it was definitely, even to this day, I can say things, I'm like, yeah, certain people, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Yes. Exactly. So it's definitely, yeah, misery loves company. I had a lot of misery down here.
And a lot of company. So how in this case, what were the expectations for you? So I'm not just going into like how you went your career path, what expectations were set for you by your peoples?
Now, I will say, as far as career paths, my parents were a little bit different because I think they knew that they came and brought us here so that we could have a better opportunity. And I think for them, it was just important that we capitalize on that opportunity. You know, a lot of immigrant families and situations that out here, they'll say, you know, you have options. You can be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be, you know, this, that. My parents never really said that to us, you know. They kind of just said, you just had to really do something with yourself. So my mom, she was just very supportive, like throughout everything, very, very supportive. When I said I wanted to go into healthcare, she said, well, you don't really like blood. Maybe you should be a lawyer. You like to argue with people. Maybe you should be a lawyer. And then I started reading all the Supreme Court cases. I said, this is not it. This is not for me, not for me. My dad was a little bit more stringent and he's very into like music. So I think in the back of his head, he wanted like a Jackson 5 situation. So he made sure, he said, everybody must play an instrument. You must. I don't care what you play, but you're going to play something. He wanted to have like a little family band. So all of us started out playing piano and I stuck with it. Middle school, I went to performing arts magnet school. So I had to go and audition and play the piano. And I was good, but I always knew I wasn't going to be a concert pianist or anything like that. So my sister played the piano, my brother played the piano, and then they kind of branched off. And, you know, my brother and sister played the saxophone. My brother ended up playing the drums and my sister ended up doing it like in high school, marching band, all that stuff. So by the time I finished middle school, I said, I don't really want to play the piano no more. You know, no big deal. But I knew I wanted to go into medicine. So I said, well, can I go to the, you know, medical magnet high school? And my mom and dad said, okay. And my dad thought that I was still like somehow going to maintain playing the piano. I just kind of let it all go. And then I did good in high school. So they really couldn't say anything. Then I went away to college. They really couldn't say anything. So as long as I was doing well in whatever I was doing, they really didn't care what I did. So I will say I didn't really have the career stress from my parents. And I mean, for them, I mean, it panned out pretty good. I ended up becoming a doctor. My sister is a PICU nurse and my brother went to the military. So he's a veteran for the Air Force and he's a firefighter now. So, and they really never made us do anything. They were just kind of like there.
Yo, that's awesome. And especially the musical, you know, aspect of things that was one that was, I wish my parents were a little bit more like emphatic about, because I love the piano and I wanted to play it, you know, more and more. When I immigrated here, you know, it just kind of faded away because ultimately the goal was, I need to get up out of here because my parents are too strict. I was like, I need to go to college.
Forget that piano.
Yeah, forget this piano. I'll catch up with it later. But that is something that like so Like, can you read the notes, and can you
Yeah, I can read notes, but I haven't played in years. Like if I go to my parents' house, my dad currently has 2 keyboards set up like in the garage. And now like my brother has a son and my sister has a son. And when they go over, my dad gets them to the garage. So I think he's still like banking on like making a band. So they're in there, they're just pounding somebody. Yeah, and he's like in a band. Like Friday nights, he meets up with his friends and they have band practice. I've never seen said band perform, but they had practice. So I do feel like they somehow try to live their dream through you, but my parents were never like, you have to do this, you have to do that. They were always super supportive, always.
No, that's what's
up. That was a plus. That was a plus because I have heard the terrors.
There are many of us who did not have said luxury.
Exactly. I've heard the terrors. You have 2 or 3 choices. What you gonna do? Yes. I didn't have that. We were actually allowed to do, as far as career, what we wanted to do.
Okay. And so then what were the expectations like for you as a young woman growing up in an immigrant household? Was that, was it different than others, or was it very, were the parents a little more laxed or because they were in a new country?
Oh, no. Caribbean parents are never lax. Not like that. And I will definitely say my experience is going to be different from my sister's experience, from my brother's experience, because I'm the eldest girl. There's a lot of responsibility when you are the eldest girl in an immigrant household.
Yes.
Like the stress, because you got to keep everybody in line when your parents, we were latchkey kids. Now you can't leave these kids home alone. We were latchkey kids. You stay here, you don't open the door, you do X, Y, and Z. We were cooking, we were cleaning. You can't do that. There was responsibility. And I knew that if my brother and sister did something, I was going to get it.
No, I gotta interrupt by just saying, okay, we grew up in a time, kids, right? For those who don't know what latchkey kids are, you can either look it up or just understand these were kids who got to stay at home. But their parents were working and they got to stay at home and they were pretty much responsible for the household, especially me being the oldest as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that I always remember from being a latchkey kid was, your parents will call you, they call the house, you don't pick up, and they'd be like, hey, pick up the phone. It's mom. Pick up the phone. Like, was that your experience too?
Yes, because they need to know that everything is okay.
Yeah, Shanna, it's me. Pick up the phone, and they'd be like, you have to pick up that phone because they'd be like, where were you?
Yes,
like,
exactly. They want to know something's not wrong. And for me, my mom, she always, anytime she left a message, and to this day she does this. I keep telling her, you don't have to do this. Say, hey, it's mommy. The time is now 7:35. I know what time you left the message. Just tell me what you want. But yeah, you had to answer. Otherwise, they thought something is wrong. And if anything goes wrong, it's me. My brother does something wrong. We all getting whooped when they get home. Everybody. So I had to keep them in line. It was definitely a responsibility to being the eldest in an immigrant household. Yeah. So everything had to be together. Everything had to be done. Your homework had to be done. Your rooms needed to be clean. My parents were very much of the mindset, you wake up in the morning, you make your bed because you never know something's going to happen. If you're going to get in an accident and somebody's going to need to bring you back. And I said, well, if I'm in an accident, who's going to care if I didn't make my bed? Nobody. Well, you can't wear holy panties and they're going to cut my clothes off anyways if something happens. But to this day, I wake up and I make that bed. And I make sure, my husband the other day had some socks with some holes. Hey, babe, you think I should throw these away? Yes. What is wrong? You have to hold a hole in. It's just small. No.
Throw it away. It's a waste.
Throw it away. What if somebody sees you and you come from nothing? Like you cannot embarrass. No, it's huge. There is no embarrassing.
You don't play that.
All.
Immigrants don't play. Black immigrants, we came too far. We do not play that embarrassment. Don't embarrass us.
Embarrassed. Exactly. So I had a conversation with my mother-in-law the other day, and my husband's family is Jamaican. And she was telling me how upset she was at Chris's sister because every day before school, she would work 2 jobs to make sure they had everything. Every day before school, she would give Chris's sister money for lunch. And she found out that she would go to school and she would just eat the school lunch for free and she would save the money. She said, oh my God, you made these people think like we don't have
poor. You think we're poor? We're not poor.
But in her head, she was being smart. Like, I'm just going to eat school lunch. It's fine. I'm going to just pocket my money. Oh, the embarrassment. Oh yeah, you cannot embarrass an immigrant family. So everything was very straight and narrow. I was a good kid just by default. I'm very type A, so I was a rule follower. But yeah, them immigrant parents, they made sure you're not going to embarrass me. You're going to do everything properly. You walk in, you're going to say good evening. They offer you food. You're going to say, no, I'm not hungry. We ate already. My stomach is growling.
Shanna, you taking me back, sis. You taking me back. Oh my God. Yo, you're giving me the flashbacks, man. The transnational flashback. Like that was that food thing. It was a real thing. It was like, don't come into this house. Don't eat anything. Like you're not hungry.
You're not hungry, but I am. But you're not. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it was like, my dad used to be one of those people like, when you're leaving for going to someone's house, better eat now. Because if you don't eat now, don't go in there and don't say. Even if they ask you, just say, no, you're fine. Thank you.
Exactly.
Like, oh my God, yo, it's so crazy. And if you were to even try, like, when you get home, you just give you that look like, they don't say anything when you get home. Because you're embarrassing us. Do you think we're...
Get out of my face.
Do you think we're poor? Like, why do you think
we're poor? They think we didn't feed you.
Oh my God. Wow.
The trauma bonding is real. It's real. But you know what? I wouldn't trade it. Like, looking back, I think it built character.
Yo, listen, I do the same. Even now in my household, the way I am with my kids, especially like my oldest, that same thing. And I try to explain to them, her particularly, because she's at that age where she can understand things. But like when you come into a space, you greet people, right? Like it's not because you're just trying to force you, but these things are character building skills that allow you to be personable.
Agreed.
Respect. When you walk into a space and you greet and you just say, how are you? You never know what type of conversations, you never know what type of interactions, opportunities. You don't know. So it's always more rewarding to just be respectful and courteous compared to just coming in and not saying nothing, especially in somebody's space. Hold on. So greeting, making your bed, like tidying. Listen, every day I go into my child's room and I'm like, what is this? 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 Like, pick this up. And I know for her, she's just like, what is this? This guy's being petty. And I'm like, no, like,
exactly.
You got to get into that habit now because it's going to help you when we're not here. And you're the oldest. You already know that. You know what come with being the oldest? You know what come with being the oldest. This is the responsibility. But ultimately, you also know that when you're the ones keeping them in line, but when you all get older, you're the boss. You know what it is. Like when you say something, most times they're gonna be like, yes, ma'am. Like, because exactly what y'all went through when y'all was shorties growing up. And that's why I try to explain to my, to Alicia, is like, you right now, you got to understand you're doing all of this, but when you want independence, you want freedom, right? This is how you get it. When you're able to do for yourself and you can be able to take care of others, like this is freedom. Like when you get to the stage when nobody's bothering you, you can do your own thing, right? But
exactly.
So I wouldn't change any of my upbringing for the world because I was resilient. I knew how to take insults. You could tell me. You could call me whatever you want to.
It don't matter. Off my back.
I've heard it worse from my peoples, right? And they still fed me, took care of me. It don't matter. I heard worse. My mom's called me things I was just like, do you love me? and it's like,
for me, that was my dad. You had to have tough skin.
Yeah, you have to, because if not, like, it's like, and I tried to explain to like, this generation is different, but as far as just explaining, like, you got to be able to push through that adversity, because if somebody comes here and talks to you, it don't matter. Like, can you still get the job done? And if you can, then none of that stuff matters, because those insults turn to compliments, especially with Black immigrants. They insult you 2 hours later. Hey, baby, like, you'd be like, wait a minute. You just called me the worst thing. You just called me a scumbag, for not not washing the dishes. And now you're just like, sweetheart, my love, are you hungry? Are you okay? Like,
nah, leave me alone.
The bipolar.
Leave me alone. No, my mom thinks she would always say, your eyeballs are so big and they're so white. So my cousin had a little baby, and of course, babies, they so small that the eyeballs look so big. Anytime she sees somebody with big eyeballs, Lord Jesus, here she go. Whoop. Eyeballs look like yours. I'm like, oh God, here we go. So you're right. Can't nobody tell you nothing you ain't heard. Nothing at all.
I've been through it all, man. So then when you were coming up, what type, did you receive any type of, I would say warning, but just any type of, were you instructed to behave a certain way towards Black Americans? Like, what was that relationship or expectations like from set by your peoples?
Right. No, we weren't instructed to behave a certain way, but I think, and it's bad because it's a stereotype. I think the stereotype is that, immigrants have manners. And I think that they stereotype that Black Americans don't have manners, you know? So I think they always said, you know, you treat everybody kind, but they did expect that, let's say I brought my Black American friend over the house, they did expect that they probably not going to greet them, they're going to have to tell them something. So I feel like my parents' expectations was always that Black Americans are not mannerable. Yeah. You know, they don't have culture, they don't have discipline and things like that. But they were still very kind, very accepting and things like that. So, you know, if we were going somewhere, we didn't have to act any differently. But I do think that that was their overriding train of thought.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know, it's not to say we're better, but definitely different upbringing and things.
More cultured, right? It just felt like it was that idea of
it was that.
Culture, I think was
exactly having a culture or something like that. Because for them, you know, Black American was, you're not doing good in school, you have no focus, your pants are hanging off the back of, you know, of your butt, and why you got to do this. And for them, it was just a bad connotation with it. I'm like, but that's not everybody, you know? So over the years, they've become much, much better. So we bring people over. It's no longer like, oh, okay, you know, let's say hi, whatever. They've been much, much better. But I think definitely growing up, they definitely had that stigma that, when we get here, you know how it's going to be. Gonna have this, we're gonna have collard greens, and okay. And I'm sure when they come here, they don't want what you cook either.
Okay, so then like before I get into like I want to talk a little bit more about like your marriage to someone that's from the Caribbean as well, and how that, I mean, especially his people from the Caribbeans, but like I want to know your connection with St. Lucia, like, and your family's connection. How often did you go back? Do you still got family there? You know, like what was that experience like for you growing up and even now?
So growing up, I think this is the expectation when you immigrate to America and you go back. The expectation is when we go back, growing up, we went a lot. And now we don't go as much. So the last time I went was 5 years ago when my grandmother passed, because we shipped her body to bury it there. And when I started residency in 2014, my family had a family reunion there. And I couldn't go. It was my first month of residency, and they were not letting up on me getting any time to go. So we're planning another family reunion next year. So we'll be back next year. I took my husband there 2 years ago for his birthday. Oh, yeah, wow. So we went, but we didn't see my family. We stayed on a different side of town, like the touristy side. So he didn't see like a lot of my family at that point. But next year we'll be seeing a lot of family. So going down, the expectation is you live in America, you're rich. When you come down here, you bring us goods,
gifts,
money, food,
gifts.
Yeah, yes. You send a barrel before you go because you're not going to be able to fit the amount of things that we're asking you for, you know? So when we went, it was just kind of like, you know, oh, they're American. And I think for us, and this is a disservice to my parents, and I think they're trying to correct it now. So in St. Lucia, they speak a broken French. They call it patois. So it's very similar to like Haitian Creole. Mm-hmm. And when my parents moved here, they felt, my dad felt like, oh, it's a broken language. You know, we shouldn't pass it on type of situation. So they didn't teach me, my brother, and my sister. So when we go down there, it's kind of like we're outcasts because everybody's speaking and we have no clue what they're saying. They could be calling us a dog. We have no idea. So it's always like a little bit uncomfortable because first they're looking at you, you're American, you're rich, you got this, you got that. And then we can talk about you, you don't know what we're saying. So here I'm very St. Lucian. There I'm very American.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's totally different.
What you just described, sis, is the like quintessential transnational experience especially for the second, like first gen American, second gen immigrant, right? Like what you, I like, my God, like for me, who was essentially a 1.5er because I came here at a young age.
Exactly. You were born there.
Yeah, I was born there. But even there, but the thing was, even growing up in Nigeria, like my parents were one of those who believed in being very aristocratic, right? And so my mother particularly was keen on like, you don't need to worry about speaking the language, like speak the Queen's English. Like, that's gonna take you far. And so like learning the language, I understand I'm paternalistically, I'm Igbo, right? That's the side I'm supposed to. My name is Kalechi. I'm supposed to take on that side. I don't understand a lick of Igbo, right? Like, and Lagos is very Yoruba. And so because of that, I understood a little bit. My mom spoke it a little bit. And then moving here, my OG spoke it here. And so I understand Yoruba, but I can't speak Yoruba the way I like to because Yoruba, I never got the practice because they just said, talk English, go far in life, be the doctor, you know.
Their plan was for you to go be great. Yeah. Don't worry, speaking here.
But then I'm like, yo, I have a huge love and, and have such pride in my culture that I want to retain, sustain, and pass it on to my, my successors, my descendants. And I'm like, man, I can teach my kids nothing, right? Like, now I gotta,
it just gets watered down. Every generation's getting watered down. You're like, no.
Yeah. So I'm like, so is that something that you've thought about as far as like, man, like the language, like how are you going to pass that on?
And
like,
it's hard for me now. So, like for instance, my sister, her son is 4. He spends every weekend at my parents' house, every weekend, and they'll start speaking to him. So like he'll come in and my dad will just talk to him in patois and he'll answer back and it sounds so good because, when you're young, you pick up on, the fluency and the intonation and stuff so well. So my mom, they went to St. Lucia a few months back. Her uncle had passed away and they came back and they gave us this little book on like common St. Lucian phrases. And they were like, we think you should have a Zoom class. You guys as the cousins so that you guys can learn to speak, by next year when we go back for the reunion. And I said, well, who's going to teach the class? Like, that's dumb. None of us speak it. We're just going to get on and look at this little book that's not going to really teach us a lot. And even with them being here, there's things that they've forgotten. So the other day, my mom and my aunt were going back and forth. They're like, how do you say happy birthday again? Born. They're like, oh my God, we've been gone too long. So even with them being here, it's fading out. And I'm like, yeah, if you don't teach, this next generation, it just gets further and further and further. But that's something I really, really wish. Because, like you, even if I didn't speak it fluently, at least I would understand that people were talking about me, And being that it's so close to Haitian Creole, for me being in healthcare, I would have an advantage, Because I see a lot of Haitian patients and I'm in there with that translator app, like,
Oh, yeah.
So it would have still given me an edge, or something that, but I mean, they did the best they could. Actually.
Yeah. All right. So a couple pop quick. You got a WhatsApp account?
Do I have a WhatsApp?
You got a WhatsApp?
Of course I have a WhatsApp.
All right. Favorite.
And let me tell you, every day my dad will send me messages to my WhatsApp account.
Yes. And
we're in America. You have an iPhone. Send me an iMessage.
You get mass messages from your cousins and like random chain letters.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Stop WhatsApping me. I'm not using this unless I'm out of the country. Stop it. You didn't respond to my message. You sent it on WhatsApp.
Yep.
I didn't look at it.
My mom still talk to me on WhatsApp. She sent me all the things on WhatsApp. I'm like, yo, we have regular text. You have an iChat. Like, talk to me on the blue bubble. She don't want to talk to me. She want to talk to me on WhatsApp.
No. WhatsApp. So and then I think I think especially, is it my husband's mom? She'll call like, what's up? What's up?
Oh my God. We live parallel lives. And I love this conversation. I love having these conversations because like, it just reminds me of the fact that like, we are very connected despite being disconnected intentionally through the diaspora and through history. But just the fact that no matter how far we went, like we still—
the roots are the same.
Yes, the roots are still the same. It's so strong. And the goal of my work in this podcast is to kind of just bring that to light and just, show that, we have an ability to navigate these two worlds, and that's what connects us. And that's what I hope can connect those who like, African-American brothers and sisters who want to reconnect with the islands or the, the motherland, whatever the case may be. All right. But okay. Favorite food. What type of food do you eat that's from the homeland?
So funny story. When I met my husband, we were just having small talk. And that was one of the conversations we had. He said, what's your favorite food? I said, oxtail and rice. I said, what's your favorite food? He said, oxtail and rice. I said, well, there we have it. There we have it. By far. Oxtail, rice and peas, fried plantain.
Oh, wait. You said plain what?
Fried plantain.
Plain what?
Wait a minute. Don't tell me you say plantain.
Absolutely, we are plantain.
No,
we are plantains. It's plantain.
No way.
Yeah.
So God. You say plantain. They're like, no, it's plantain.
What? What's a plantain? Chips. What are you planting? So
plantain chips. Not plantain chips. I love plantain chips.
This is like the age-old debate. I was just like, because me and Wanda be like, what's the difference? I'm like, listen, it's a real thing that they do. Like, and if you want to know where people are from, that's a huge, like, if you want to know if you're talking with someone that's from like the actual continent, you just be like, okay, plantain or plantain. And they'd be like, if they say plantain, you're from the you say plantain, you're from the continent. And it's very easy. But yeah, no, okay. So you said rice. So, and another real thing, right? You said, is it rice and peas or peas and rice?
You know what? For us, it's rice and peas. The only people I hear say peas and rice down here are Bahamians. So peas and rice is a very Bahamian thing, but every other Caribbean island is rice and peas.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I figured. I mean, because Jamaicans don't play about that. That's how you know what's real and not. Like
rice and peas.
All right. You mentioned soca music?
Mm-hmm. Soca, for sure. So St. Lucia is big on soca, calypso, for sure.
Okay. All right. Now you mentioned your husband's his peoples are from Jamaica. And so what is that connection like for y'all as a family, homeland there? Like, what is that lifestyle? How does that influence you all as a household and your growth and your plans? Is it built around the culture? How are you all planning that with your Caribbean influences?
Well, for us, it was easy. It's definitely easy talking to someone that's Caribbean versus talking to someone who was Black American. There's a whole lot less you have to explain because there's so many similarities island to island. For us, it's definitely, flying out of Fort Lauderdale or Miami, it's cheaper for us to go to Jamaica. So I've known my husband 6 years. We went to St. Lucia once. We've been to Jamaica 10 times. So it's a lot easier to say, you know what, we could see ourselves investing in property in Jamaica because it would just be easier to get to, not for any other reason. Food-wise, everything is pretty much the same. Culture-wise, everything is the same. It's very, very easy. That's something that I found. I met him and everything was pretty seamless. He's very clean. If I'm not here in the morning, he makes the bed. It's exactly like how things worked in my house. So there was very little that I really had to explain. There's very little we had to tweak when we moved in together. Because I'm like, wow, you were raised like me. There's very little that had to be explained. You come in the house, you don't go lay in the bed and your house clothes. There's just very few things.
Change your clothes.
Yeah, it just, and I think for him, my husband was actually born in Jamaica. Okay. He lived there until he was like 2, and his mom moved here and was working to bring them over. So then, brought him over. And for him, he feels like he's just like a super Jamaican. I'm like, you were there for 2 years. How much could you really have accumulated and said 2 years? I remember bathing in the bucket. I'm like, you don't remember that. You don't remember that. But so here, I remember. Yeah, I remember. I'm like, okay, whatever. So yeah, I appreciate his culture. I think for me, the only thing is that, and this is just, I have a friend from St. Kitts and Nevis, and we're what we call, small island massive. Because growing up, there was really, you're Caribbean. If you're not Haitian, you were Jamaican. None of the smaller islands existed, And now people are traveling and there's carnival everywhere. So now, people know St. Lucia and Barbados and Trinidad and, and Grenada and Dominica. But before, all of those small islands didn't matter. They didn't matter. If you were from the islands, you were either Hispanic or you were Jamaican or you were Haitian. And growing up, being Haitian wasn't cool. So everybody wanted to be Jamaican. So, as soon as people would hear my parents speak, they say, oh, y'all Jamaican? I say, no, we're not Jamaican. There's other islands besides Jamaica. And, we actually, my husband and I, we got in an argument one time because we went to Home Depot. We were pricing out refrigerators. Didn't need a refrigerator, but my husband is like Terry Crews on 98 Chris. So he can't turn down a good deal. So we're looking at refrigerators like, oh, there's a good deal. And she had on her mask and she's sitting down upset. And she starts talking to my husband and my husband starts spitting patois. She goes, as soon as she hears him, she sits up. Oh, you are Jamaican? And now she wants to help us. She takes her mask off because now all of a sudden we don't have COVID because he's Jamaican, They start talking. She's helping us. She's showing the inside of every fridge and this, that. And then, she kind of starts talking about food and stuff like that. And then she looks at me and she says, oh, she don't understand. She a yardie. So here you're a yardie if you're from,
American. Yeah,
if
Black
you're American, you're a yardie. You're a yardie.
That's the name. Really?
Yeah, a yardie. Yeah, she a Yankee because everybody goes to New York and da-da-da-da. So yeah, you a Yankee. Yeah. I said, okay.
Yankee.
So she starts talking.
We're connected, man. This is
when you come in, everybody goes through New York. You a Yankee.
You're a Yankee.
So yeah, she don't understand. She a Yankee. So my husband was like, well, no. And she's like, so where you from? And I said, St. Lucia. And she goes, even worse. Oh. And then my husband laughed and kept having conversation. That was it. I said, we're not going back. Her name was Audrey. We're not going back. We're not buying anything from her because when she said that, and basically put your island above mine, you didn't defend me, And I'm like, He was, she's just being funny. I said, no. Because everybody, you have to be able to represent where you're from and be proud of where you're from. Just because you're, African does not mean you're automatically Nigerian. You can be Cameroonian. You can't just assume, you're Nigerian. No, not necessarily.
And
it's been easy, except for that. The fact that once they meet him and he's Jamaican, everybody assumes I'm Jamaican.
But I'm sure that's like frustrating, right? Because it's something, again, for me, I'm starting to unpack those intraracial type of intraracial country type of differences, right? Like where it's more so, hey, everybody is from West Africa. You're like, yo, I'm from Sierra Leone. It's like, what's that? Right. And
exactly.
It's like, Nigerian, or are you Ghanaian? Right. Or
exactly.
People don't even talk about, if you're not from Ethiopia, it's like Eritrean. What's that?
Yeah,
right?
Eritrean, exactly.
So it's so interesting how they create these contrasts that impact, how we interact and treat each other, right? So I didn't even know, right? I used to always think the islands were just Jamaica and Haiti. And I didn't even know, like, I had one of my colleagues from when I was in upstate New York is from an island called Montserrat, right? Right? It's small island. I was like, baby girl, I had to go find a flag. I was like, oh, he's like, it's a volcano there. That's all we got. I was like, no, what? She said, yeah, it's right across from Antigua. It's right next to Antigua. Right. And I just like, I've never heard. I didn't understand where these places were. Barbados, like all these places. I had no
Barbados didn't get big until Rihanna. Thank God for Rihanna.
Yeah. And so like, so did you have to deal with that part? Like, especially when you're in college, when you're in college, you get to these like Caribbean student associations, you start finding your little cliques and you have these different cultural groups. Like, did you have to deal with those types of interactions, or was it just when you were, with your husband in that Home Depot situation?
The same, because in college, I'm sure y'all had a CSA, like a Caribbean Student Association, and they always have, we're notorious for having flag parties. So sometimes when you get there, you don't bring a flag and they handing out flags. And of course they tossing everybody a Jamaican flag. Not that one. Not that one.
Yeah.
It was very much, I might have to bring my flag because y'all not going to have it. Or, what flag is that? Now it's so much more well known that you don't really run into that. But yeah, growing up, it was very much, I need to bring my flag because they're not going to have it there. We had a place called Lauderhill Mall, which is like very, very Caribbean. You go there, you're not going to have it. Not going to have it. They had a little boxing glove that you hang up on the little mirror in the rear view mirror. And they have, all types of stuff. Very rare to find a St. Lucian one. All the smaller islands, and I get it. It's a production thing. I'm not going to make a lot of these if it's a small island and they're not really selling like that. So I get it, but, it's definitely gotten better. I will definitely say that.
All right. So look, let's shift and talk about your two things. I want to talk a little bit about your traveling, your passion for traveling, like where you've been, what you love about it, and all the things you're doing. You're getting big on Instagram and TikTok and it, right? So I want to put that out there as well. And then we can kind of wrap up by talking about your pediatric passions and everything that involves that. But traveling, what sparked this whole like travel life and travel blog that you got going on?
Well, I actually like to travel, but the thing about going into medicine is delayed gratification. So you spend so much time in school. You got to be here. You really don't have the time to really travel or go anywhere, And growing up, we had passports, but we only went to the Caribbean. We never really went anywhere else. My parents never took us to like Europe, Africa. We never went anywhere else. We just went to the Caribbean. That was it. Came back home. So after I got out of residency, I had some downtime. I had just started working. I had a lot of vacation, and I met my husband, and my husband was very open to traveling. So we kind of just, I think as soon as I graduated residency, he says, I want to take you on a trip. So he took me to Paris. So we planned to go to Paris, and we went there, and, he's very big on not going somewhere and, renting a car, getting Uber. He's very big on living like the locals. So we took the train, and, I was like, this is going to be bad. We don't speak French. Thank you, parents. This is going to be real bad, but we figured everything out. Then we ended up, taking a flight one day, going to London. And we were like, this is cool. Like, it actually worked. We should do this more often. And then what I started finding was the way his schedule was set up and the way my schedule was set up, because at that time I was what they call a float. So I was contracted to work a certain number of days a week. So at that point I was working 3 days, and then I had to do 2 Saturdays for the month. But I could work the days anyhow I wanted to work. So if I wanted to, I could work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday the next week. And then I could be off for like a set of like 8 days altogether before I had to come back to work and work my next 3 days. So being that my schedule was set up like that, I would find cheap flights. Because the trick with finding cheap flights, you have to be available at odd times. And because the way my schedule was and the way his schedule was, we could literally just pick up on a Tuesday and go just based on where we needed to go. So we started finding cheap tickets and we just started going places. And a lot of the travel that we did were like down season. Like my birthday is in December. So we've gone a lot of places just because it's cheap to go places in December. So we went to Italy, we went to Amsterdam, all in December because it's cold. Nobody really wanted to go in those times. So we went to Dubai and we booked we booked so last minute because we got a really, really good deal. The hotel we booked, let's say we had an overnight flight to Dubai. So we were flying out of Miami. Our flight was at 9 p.m. I remember my mom's church is close to my house. So she went to church. She came to my house at noon. We had not booked a hotel yet. So we went on, found a cheap hotel, booked it. So we were just really, it just kind of worked. We were both pretty free spirits. We both had time that we could play around with. We both didn't really get stressed out if things didn't go, like I'm the planner. So I would plan more so ideas. I'd like to go to Dubai. I'd like to go to Burj Khalifa. I'd like to go to Miracle Gardens, but I wasn't strict on how it had to happen. So once we got there, we just did whatever made more sense. If we were in the area, hey, how about we go here? And you say, was there anything else on your list that you wanted to do? So I think that's what's made it work the most for us, that we're both pretty flexible. So date-wise, place-wise, I'll go anywhere. I've been trying to get him to go to Arizona. He's giving me a little pushback. But I saw a cheap flight there and I was like, let's go. So yeah, we'll go anywhere. We'll go to New Orleans for a day. We came to Chicago to see y'all. We're like, this is a ticket. So I think for us, it's really just finding a good deal, which for him works. And then just getting to see places. I understand that our parents gave us an opportunity that they didn't have, but they didn't give us the opportunity to travel. And I think for us, one day for our future kids, we would love to give them the opportunity to travel, after they go on summer vacation. Like even my patients in clinic, I say, what are your plans for the summer? Thinking they're going to say, I'm going to summer camp. I'm spending 3 weeks in Europe. I'm like, my parents never did. But again, my parents were not in the position. My parents came here to give me an opportunity. So, you have to set yourself up so you can show your kids more than you had the opportunity to see. So right now, while we have the time, we have the freedom, we're traveling the world. I'll go anywhere that's cheap. Take me.
Yeah. I remember hearing y'all found like a ticket to New Orleans for like $20. Was that true?
Yep. It was like $16. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yep. Just a random ticket.
Was it Spirit?
It was Spirit. Yeah, it was Spirit. But what we do, we don't pay for bags. We try not to pay for seats. Yeah, we just take like a little backpack. We're like, we don't have to go anywhere. We take a backpack, one pair of shoes, and we're gone. We're not here to, we're here to explore. We're going to be on the road, no big deal. And one big hack that we did, we actually, where are we coming back from? We came from Jamaica last month and we wanted to sit in the emergency exit on Spirit. So online, I think when we first looked, the seats was $35. We slept on it, went up to $55 a seat, $65. And we could see that nobody was buying the seats. We were like, should we do it? Should we do it? We waited until we got to the airport, went up to the counter. And because they had to see your passport and stuff, we said, hey, how much for the emergency exit? And she looks, she goes, $16. Book it.
Okay.
Yeah, if you watch it and they're not booked and you go to the airport and then you ask for the seat there, it's going to be cheaper than online.
Yo.
So it's just like little hacks and stuff like that, And I started posting it. I started posting pictures and then I started getting questions, about it. So I'll get questions about old trips. When you went to New Orleans, where did you go? Hey, we're coming to visit Fort Lauderdale. Where should we eat? And then Sabrina, our mutual friend Sabrina, she would say, you know what, you need to start doing like travel guides. I would buy them. I would pay for them, this is that. So I haven't really looked into that far, but I'm very big on going and memorializing. Because a lot of times you leave and you don't really remember. And I look back and I'm like, wow, we did this. We walked, we saw the Eiffel Tower. We saw the Leaning Tower of Pisa, all these things. And I'm like, that's magnificent. You've definitely seen a lot. And, I'm okay with sharing any information that can help somebody get somewhere cheap. Hey, I'll share it.
Yes, man. I got my notes already. So it's already, listen, you already know I'm reaching out. But so then I think that's dope. And I think that's powerful what you said as far as the idea of being able to expose your future children and this younger generation to the world, right? Because I think that it to me, it unlocks a deeper meaning because you said, our parents immigrated here hoping to give us a chance to be better than them. And but the idea of being better than them is leaving your homeland and then coming to this new land and hoping that you can flourish. But then the beauty about going further now is that now we have the ability to unlock even more, even now travel and become global citizens, right? Like we're not just limited to this country or even the old country.
Exactly.
Now we can have the ability to even expand and spread our wings even, more and further, to let sure that our kids know what the world is, because
exactly,
it can be exposed to other parts and other cultures. That in itself is a gift. That in itself,
agreed.
Like that is a blessing and a skill that like some people don't have the luxury. There are people who are in Miami right now, and that's all they know, right?
That's it. They don't have a passport. They don't have nothing.
That's all they know.
Nothing. And I'm like,
now on the South Side who haven't even barely been up north, right? And that's all they know is the South Side, being on 79th. And so it's something that I feel, especially as Black people, for people who are forced to be in these particular places, I feel like we should have the freedom to be able to travel and explore parts of the world in which we know that our ancestors had some type of role building, some way.
Agreed.
People make it seem like slavery was just
unlocked. Use it.
Yeah, it's a new level unlocked, man. And so, but one thing that I know you mentioned initially is just as far as even being in healthcare, you have you say you have a passion for advocating. And so what type of advocating do you typically do, and what drives you to be an advocate using your expertise and your platform to be able to do what you love?
I think I have a passion for educating my patients for the most part and teaching them to advocate for themselves, because I feel like in healthcare, you go in as a patient and you're looking at a doctor and you have so much respect for this doctor. This doctor's just a person. But I feel like a lot of people, they'll cower and they won't ask the questions that they want to ask. They won't get the explanations that they need. And I'm like, that's important. That's important going forward. I feel the healthcare system, in the way that it is, it focuses on volume. So like my practice in particular is high volume. The goal is kicking people in and out, high turnover. And I feel like in doing that, people don't get the education that they need. So for instance, if you come in and let's say you have a stomach bug typically consists of three things: fever, diarrhea, vomiting. Let's say you came in with diarrhea. We say, oh, it's probably a stomach bug. Take this, go home, because I'm trying to kick you out for the sake of time. 2 days later, I see them back. Oh, now she started vomiting. And I'm like, if I would have just told you everything that you could have expected, you wouldn't have to come here, waste your time, take up a slot that somebody else could have taken. You would have already known this is part of the disease course. So I like for people to know the full picture. And I'll find that when my patients come in and I explain something to them, they'll say things like, wow, nobody ever explained that to me like that before. Nobody ever took the time to tell me that. My kids had asthma their whole life and nobody ever broke it down to me like that. And I'm like, wow, that's terrible. So in my job, it's so high volume that I found myself getting very overwhelmed, very burnt out. And I said, I got to do something different. I got to go. At that time, we just got a Black pediatric nurse practitioner. But at that time, I was the only chocolate chip there. So in the back of my head, I said, my mental health is suffering, but I can't leave. I'm the only one. Who's going to advocate for my patients. Because when they come in and they need things, I know other providers will turn them away. And I'll say, you know what? I'll take the extra time and I'll do it. If I have to take it home and do this paperwork for you, if I have to, call this place myself, I'm going to make sure it gets done for you and help you navigate the system, because you don't know how to navigate the system. So I do take that extra step. It takes me more time. It's more stressful, but they're so appreciative. They're so much more knowledgeable. When they come back in, they say, it was a cold, but I did X, Y, and Z, and then it still wouldn't get better. So then I came in. I say, you see, now you're learning. So I have a patient. She has 5 kids, and her youngest got sick the other day. And she went to a different location, and it kind of broke me because the provider she saw is the only Black provider there as well. It's a Black male. And she said that, her son was pulling his hair so hard. It was like he was going to pull it off. He had a lot of thick mucus. And the guy was basically like, it's a cold. And she said she walked in the room. He had graphs pulled up on the computer, explained this and that. And at the end, he kind of asked her, like, does that sound okay? And she said, I said, yes, it sounds fine. Because she was like, what was I supposed to say? And I was like, you're supposed to say no. You're supposed to say no. Like, why would you say that? She's like, well, I just felt like he wasn't listening to me anyways. So then I saw her afterwards. She's like, thank you so much. Like, he just really wasn't listening. I'm like, you have to speak up. She's like, but he's a doctor. That's okay. You're there for a service. If you're not getting what you need, you have to speak up. You have to be an active participant. Or I have them, like, some of my patients, they'll find me on Instagram, or they'll have my personal number, my personal email. They'll call me from the ER. They're not doing X, Y, and Z. Well, ask them if they can do, this. And they say, oh, they did it. It came back positive. And I'm like, you have to really step up for yourself. You know, it's your right. It's your right. So my goal is just to teach them, you can speak up. A doctor is just a person. We're human.
So like, you know, that I want to now see, how do you then balance that from, you know, growing up in a Caribbean household with Caribbean, you know, parents, and, you know, we have our remedies, right? So as a physician, right, especially when I don't know how many patients you have that may be from, you know, Caribbean, that have Caribbean backgrounds, but how do you try to explain and you know, integrate the cultural competency and experience that you have as a member of that community? How do you try to educate like Black immigrant families who may resort to some of these remedies, even your own, and the actual, you know, medical practice that, or what they call Western medicine practice, medicinal practice? How do you balance that?
It's hard. So I tell them the science behind it, and I know it's hard because even my own father, he's very big on, oh, you go to work and you just give people all this medicine. He's very like natural. Very, oh my God, you could just be drinking turmeric and this, that, and you go to work and you're giving people all these prescriptions. And I'm like, I feel like there's a place for both. So especially with Caribbean people, I have a large Caribbean population. I have to sit them down. Like I have to sit my parents down, you know, and I have to tell them, you know what? I know this is what we normally do, but this is what we do now. And this is the reason why. You can still get away with doing X, Y, and Z, but maybe don't do it so much. Like the whole debate behind giving your baby water. Giving your babies water is a huge Caribbean thing. And it's not necessary because babies get water through their formula, through their milk. If you give your baby water, formula, it's mixed with water. If you give your baby breast milk, it's mostly water. So babies don't need free water. It kind of, you know, overpowers the kidneys. So I did like a TikTok about it. And there were so many Caribbean people on there. We need water. And my dad, so when my sister had her son, my dad would go in the tree, cut the coconut, pour the coconut water in the bottle. Oh, he likes it, but he don't need it. He don't need water, much less coconut water. He don't need it, you know? So then I posted the same the same video on TikTok, and I had a couple people comment, and they basically said that it's the same for African people. Say you must have your water, you know, to cleanse your system or whatever it may be. So I tell them, you know, I understand that you're giving the water to clean it up, but you don't need it. So I don't try to completely like shut them down, but I try to at least change their mindset and help them pull back a little bit, you know, because once you come in and you just want to shut everything down, no, we're still going to do this. But I just try to change, you know, the way that they look at it a little bit. Hey, just keep in mind, you can maybe get away with an ounce or two, but you really don't need it, you know.
And do you think they receive that better than just, you know?
Yeah, shut it down, like no water. So yeah, I do think they receive it better. I do. So I just try to pull them back. Or when they come and they say, oh, we're putting baby food in the bottle. I say, well, you know what? I really want you to do it on a spoon instead, just so he's learning those skills. I say, oh, okay, I see. So I try not to tell them what you're doing is wrong. I try to phrase it like, you could do this instead to help with like development. You know, you should do it this way because it's going to help them in the long run. And they seem to receive it better that way. But yeah, most of my patients are very, very receptive. Very. I had a full out argument with the dad one time because, and I see a lot of this because the moms and the dads will come in and one feels this way and one feels that way. And they're looking for me to be the tiebreaker. So I feel like their baby had like a runny nose and the mom was very big on using Kleenex, wiping the nose, throwing it away. The dad, who was very Caribbean, was not big on wasting all the Kleenex. So he took like a rag and he safety pinned it on the shirt and he kept using the rag to wipe the baby's nose. And the mom was not feeling that. You just keep wiping the same snot on his nose. Doc, tell him that you're not supposed to do this. And I was like, well, it probably is a better idea to just use a Kleenex and throw it away. No, but we do this all the time. I'm like, I get it. I'm just saying. So yeah, some habits are hard to break, but I do kind of, you know, try to be politically correct, not upset the whole household. And, you know, if I see something blatantly wrong, I say it. But if it's something that's not really that harmful, I'll let it go. You feel like you should give your baby an ounce of water? Sure. If we're having a discussion about putting rum on your baby's gums for teething, okay, let's reel it back in now.
Right. Yeah.
That's really bad. But they receive pretty well.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Again, same lifestyle, just different of the world. All right, so just to wrap up, because I've taken like almost an hour of your time, which I appreciate. but I know you got other lives to save, at least your own, if you can get home and get some rest. But I want to know overall, with everything taken into consideration, your upbringing, your passions, what you have, like where you're currently at and where you're hoping to be. Like, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want your impact, to be, and how does your culture play a role with that?
Well, I feel like coming in and being part of an immigrant family, you're very proud of where you came from. Whatever you're doing, you're doing it to make your family proud. So I know that when I go to work every day, I'm making my family proud. And my patients tell me without a doubt, oh my God, I'm sure your parents are so proud of you. So I already know, especially my Hispanic patients, your parents are so proud of you, So I think as far as my legacy, I just want to know that I was able to impact just one life. Because for me growing up, my physician, my pediatrician was a white male. And he always said, as a female, when you go in, how's school, what do you want to do? And I'm saying, I want to be a doctor. He said, you shouldn't do that. You're a female. Don't you want to get married, have a family? Maybe you should think about something else. And I said, no, it is what I want to do.
Hey, I should have let off with that. What?
Yeah.
Wait, how old were you?
I had to be middle school, maybe.
Middle school?
I mean, he was my pediatrician until he was my pediatrician until I left to go away to school. So he always said that, but I knew it was, what I wanted to do. So I said, no biggie, whatever. So I went on, went to medical school, went to residency, all of that, became a doctor, came back home. And I said, let me look him up because I got to tell him I did it. I looked his name up, obituary. He passed away. If I could go back and tell him I did it. But, he's always stuck with me. And I feel like, being a pediatrician, there's something that sticks with you. You always remember your childhood pediatrician, People say, I went to them since my baby was a newborn, So I always feel like if I had the opportunity to tell a child something different than what I was told, I've done my job. So when they come in and they say, I want to be a doctor, I say, you can do it. Because I'm never going to look at somebody and tell them what was told to me, that you can't do it, you shouldn't do it, you should think about something else. So when I walk in the room, I can already tell, I had a patient the other day, she was maybe 18, 19, and I walked in and she goes, oh, and she stood there. I said, I'm Dr. Stephen, how are you? And she just stood there. She said, I've never seen anyone that looks like me. And before she left, she said, can I please get a picture with you? I've just never, and people are so grateful and thankful. And they say, thank you for being here. Thank you for being seen. It's just so nice to, see somebody that looks like you. And I know that it makes a difference. So, I try to be culturally competent to all my patients. I try to educate them. And I make sure that when I see, someone coming up who wants to do anything, you want to be a chef, you can do it. If nobody's ever told you, you're doing a great job, you can do it. And as long as, I at least inspire one person, I'm I was uninspired. I did my job.
Yo, that is powerful. That hits home. That hits home, especially because for me, I'm still thinking about the fact that, like I said, we're very, close in age. So this happened.
Yeah, this isn't that far removed.
It's not that far removed. This is 2000s, right?
2000s, exactly.
So for that mentality to still be, but then again, I'm Florida, right? So then part of me is
for real though,
right?
For real, Florida's Florida.
But yeah, but okay. So yes, we got to end it like that because I don't even want that was noteworthy, and I hope that others who are listening can be able to really draw a lot from that. But man, says Dr. Shanna Stephen, traveling known as Mrs. O'Connor, but here, Dr. Stephen, thank you so much for jumping on the show. How can people, I know you're doing your traveling, you want people to follow you on IG. How do people reach out to you? They want to continue to get these low prices for exit row.
Get all the tips and get some little comedies from The Office.
Tell people how they can follow you.
I'm on IG, I'm on TikTok, the handle's the same. Hey_Shay Shay, SHAY.
All right. Well, sis, thank you so much for jumping on the show. Thank you for
having me. Thank you for bridging the gap. You are appreciated.
Yeah, I'm trying my best, man. But it's people like you who really make it fun and make it worth it. So, man, wishing you whatever we can do to continue to support, man. Please reach out, let us know. But man, we wishing you nothing but the best. Keep us in mind when you're traveling, and best of luck with everything you do. Shout out to the editors, though.
Whoop, whoop, whoop. Thanks for having me.